right, for the love of sci-fi. How you all doing? How's this con going so far? I hear it looks like we have a couple of gremlins out there. It looks like you guys are up for a great panel here. This is Zach Galligan, everyone.
Hello, hello, hello. It works. Excellent. Great. Thanks for sticking around at the end of a Sunday. If you haven't gotten everybody's autograph by now, I guess it's kind of a problem, right? Yeah.
I think so. Look at you guys.
What's going on? Everyone's like, it's Sunday.
Wow, let's get this energy back up. Zach.
Yes.
How many years since Gremlins?
Decades. 33 years since Gremlins.
33 years. And you're here, you're not just doing this con, you're out doing some things with your movie, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of become a Christmas movie now. I'm doing a tour of the UK, and I'm going all over just to do Christmas screenings. Most of them actually are sold out, but there's still a few tickets available. I'm doing Derby tonight, Leicester on Monday, Leeds, Cardiff, Birmingham, London, Belfast on Saturday night, and then finishing up with 2 sold-out shows in Glasgow, Scotland.
That is amazing.
So going all over, all 4 parts of the United Kingdom, spreading the Gizmo love, ladies and gentlemen. Merry Gizmas. Merry Gizmas, everyone.
Yeah, so go be Zach groupies. Go follow him around. This
or
is
Gizmo
cool.
groupies. He gets more fan mail than I do.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's cuter.
Gizmo.
And he looks the same 33 years later.
So fantastic. So, when did you first discover you had talent for acting?
I think people are still wondering if I've got talent for acting, so they're still trying to discover it. I started doing plays when I was like maybe 6 or 7. You know, I was doing stuff in first grade. I would play things like the captain of the whaling ship, you know, in your first grade play. Or one time I played one of the dwarves in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs in school plays, you know, stuff that
Which
you
one?
do. I think I was Doc. Yeah.
I would have been Dopey.
You would have been Dopey? Nice. And so I did that, and then I did a lot of school plays in high school and stuff like that. And because I lived in Manhattan, casting directors kind of came and scouted the school that I was in. And so they sort of scouted me, and the next thing I know, I was trying out for movies, and the next thing I knew, I was getting movies, and suddenly I'm here. And the whole thing has just been a crazy, 37-year trip. It's been pretty wild, really.
37 years.
37 years.
You don't even look 37, so it's amazing. Can you believe he's 37? So these, all the 80s movies, what do you think the fascination is with them? And, there's now the Stranger Things and Super 8 and all these things. What do you think? Why do you think that the 80s movies have such a cult following, like Gremlins? And, what is it about that? What is it about your movie?
He said because they were better. I believe that's what he shouted out. Well, I think they're very well-made movies. I think they're very nicely crafted. They don't rely a lot on computer-generated effects, and they use things that are practical effects, which you see now Star Wars. The new Star Wars movies are kind of to rely on a little bit more of, practical effects. And I think there's a kind of a sweetness and an innocence to a lot of the 80s movies that people still respond to. They have kind of a kindness to them. Whereas like even some movies like Avengers and stuff have kind of like a gritty kind of a toughness to them. Whereas, like you think of a Spielberg movie, right? When they did Super 8, they tried to sort of rediscover that kind of gentle quality, the sweetness that was kind of inherent in the 80s movies that maybe somehow is just kind of gone a bit missing in films. I don't know. That could just be my own opinion.
Well, I think that they should get people like, they brought Sean Astin on to Stranger Things and everything. I think you'd be good in that show, too.
I'd love to, especially since they shoot it in Atlanta, where I live. So I'm kind of like, I almost went on Twitter, and I'm like, why aren't I on this show? I would just come out straight out and say it. Like, I should be on this show.
I think it's like a no-brainer, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the '80s movies too. I was a fan of yours. I was a fan of what you did and everything like that. I think there's a sweet quality to the movies, but there was also a sweetness to your character in that film too, and the way you related to Gizmo. I mean, it was precious in a way, I think.
Yeah. Also, it's what they've sort of. If you notice something about Stranger Things, and it's very subtle, you have to watch the show, and you realize there's nothing kind of political about it at all. There's nothing preachy or anything like that. It's just storytelling. No one's trying to teach you anything or preach you anything. It's just giving you a good story and kind of leaving all of that out of it. And I think a lot of people kind of enjoy that. I think a lot of people are sort of just burnt out on like kind of being taught morals all the time. I mean, that's what you have, other things for, rather than entertainment. Entertainment is supposed to be a place where people go and they just check everything at the door and they just have a really, really good time, and the real world ceases to exist and they just escape and have a great time, and there's no even relevance tied into the world that they're living in. It's just pure escapism, popcorn movie, and you see that's why like the Marvel movies are kind of a perfect example of that in a way, because it's just, it's just cartoons and comic books and Spider-Man and innocent stuff like that. It's just pure escapism.
Yeah. Hey.
Am I right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
So
front half of the theater goes, yeah. Back half goes, oh, I don't know. Kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I learned something new. They said that you screen tested for Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Sure. Well, I'm sure I wasn't alone. I think a lot of people did.
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
What year did you get into acting, though?
I came out September 12th, 1989.
Okay.
So
you came out?
As an actor.
Talk about me getting a scoop,
As an actor.
Came out in 1929. Hey, there you go. Very nice. Okay, well, so the screen tests were 1984. So it's hard for you to screen test 5 years before you started acting.
I was in junior high.
There you go. Yeah. So, anytime you're an actor, you're going to go up for all sorts of amazing roles, and most of the time, you're probably not going to get all of them. You're going to miss out on a lot of them. So there were a few that get away that even today are kind of painful. Like The Breakfast Club, that was a tough one. Platoon, that was a tough one. Pulp Fiction, I went up for the Frank Whaley part. Yeah, the one where he goes, why do they call it a Royale with cheese? Because of the metric system, that character. So I read for Quentin Tarantino for that part. So, you're always going to get some that you don't get, but then you have to kind of focus on the ones you do get. Because the ones you do get, if you get a big one like Gremlins, it lasts for 30 years, and suddenly you're here in Manchester, and people are still sitting here interested and asking and stuff like that. I mean, I have friends who have way better careers than me, and I'm like, look at all the people that you worked with. That is amazing. You worked with this director and that director. And one of my friends who shall remain nameless turned to me and he goes, yeah, but you've had a hit. So it's like, you want to have both. You want to have a great career, but you also want to have like a big hit that just never goes away, because that gives you sort of the longevity.
A cult classic.
There you go.
They're amazing. I do a show where I have cult classics and I talk to people who have done it. So maybe you'll come on my show sometime.
Maybe I will. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking
for a
of
fee,
this,
for a big fee,
for a small nominal fee.
Yeah.
So Chris Columbus.
Yes.
Is talking about saying that the Gremlins is, it's back.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I don't really know. This is one of the things that's kind of strange about it. Like when they did Gremlins 2, apparently they were working on it for about a year and a half. I had no idea, and they called me up at the end of February '89. They said, do you want to do Gremlins 2? And I said, yeah, sure, when? And they're like, in a couple of months. And I was like, whoa. That's not a whole lot of notice to get for a huge movie like that, 2 months. So if they just finish doing the script, they could be a year or two away from shooting, because I would imagine they'd have to rebuild all of the Gremlins and all of the Gizmos again. You can't use the ones from 1989. That's like using your old Apple computers from 1990. You're not going to do that. You're going to use updated technology, right? You're going to do the best that you possibly can. So I would imagine they'd have to build an entire flotilla of new, a legion of new gremlins and gizmos and whatnot. So even if the script is finished, which according to Chris Columbus it is, it's going to be quite a while before it actually goes in front of the cameras. And I have no idea whether I'm involved or not. I mean, I guess when they're a couple of months away, they'll call me and say, yeah, you're in it, or no, you're not. Well, actually, if I'm not in it, they just won't call. And I'll be like, wow, that Gremlins 3 was really great, wasn't it? Yeah, I saw it at a screening the other day.
But you do it if they asked you.
Oh, are you kidding? Gotta do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's what we want, right?
Right.
So, any advice for any young actors out there they're gonna go out into the world that you are still doing well in?
Well, most of the people probably don't realize this, but I actually taught acting at NYU from 2006 to 2015. So I've had literally a couple of thousand students over the last decade who are interested in acting. And what I said to them, I would say to anyone out there in the audience, which is, acting is a very difficult profession. It can be very disheartening. There's lots of ups and downs and hills and valleys, and you have to be 1,000% committed to it. So if you could do anything else other than act, then you should absolutely do that. You should run away from the profession as fast as possible. But if it's the one thing that you have to do, if your life depends on it, where if you didn't do it, you would be miserable for the rest of your life, then you should do it. You should do it 1,000%, and you should start yesterday. Because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And the sooner you start, the better it's going to be for you. I mean, I started when I was 17, and I think getting an early start was absolutely crucial. I really feel if I'd started when I was 22 or 23 and I had to go in with that big group of people that just gets out of university, that huge bulge of talent that gets out at 22, probably wouldn't have made it. But I think because I got the early start, you look at someone like Jennifer Lawrence, she got discovered in New York City. She was from Kentucky. She got discovered in Union Square by a casting director when she was 14. So she started at 14 instead of 22. She won her Oscar when she was 24 because she started 8 years before everybody else. So you have to start young. You have to really get your feet wet. But if you start young, you got to have your parents around you all the time, watching you like a hawk, never letting you away from their sight. You got to just be very, very careful that you got good parents, good support system, and that you're really, really focused on what you do. And the younger you start, the better. There you go.
That's some good advice. So we want to open it up to some questions for the audience.
I'd be happy to take as many questions as anyone wants to throw out.
All right, I'm going to throw this out there. They told me to throw it, so you guys can catch?
What is that?
It's a squawk box. It's a catch box. See, this says catch box. I really throw this out in the audience. You guys want me to throw this?
Catch box. Good catch.
You have the question, sir.
He caught the box.
You.
It's a question to both of you, actually, both Casper and Zach.
What's your name?
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Both Zach and Casper, you've worked with different types of technology on there. What are the potential pitfalls of each type of technology that you've worked with? Obviously, Zach, the mechanical, and Casper with the CGI.
We had a few practicals in Starship Troopers.
That's if it was CGI in Starship Troopers.
It was all CGI. It was mainly all CGI, but we had some practical. For me, we just had to follow what the director. The director would get in front of us. Paul Verhoeven, who's an incredible director, would get out and go, "The bugs are coming!" Ah! So basically, I was shooting the bugs, which the bugs were my director, Paul Verhoeven. And every actor wants to kill their director at one point or other during the film.
I just think the benefit of practical effects is that when you're an actor, or a film actor especially, it requires tremendous amount of imagination. I mean, first of all, people say, like, what's it like working with Gizmo? Is it hard to pretend it's a pet? Well, it's no more difficult to pretend Gizmo's my pet than to pretend some actress I met 10 minutes ago is my wife. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, here's your wife, and you're going to do the romantic scene first day of the shoot. I'm like, hi, what's your name, Shirley? How are you? You know, the next thing you know, you're making out 45 minutes later. That's pretty strange if you stop and think about it. So pretending an incredibly realistic, squeaky, cute, adorable pet is just an actual cute pet is actually really simple, by comparison. So the more reality that you have to act off of, generally the better your performance is going to be. So when you see some of these movies, not that I'm going to name any names, but how about the Star Wars trilogy? Oh, sorry, I just named it. The second one, the Phantom Menace, that one. Most of what their actors are doing is they're acting just in a giant room with a green screen. And what they're saying is, imagine there's a huge city, and then imagine there are all these spaceships, and imagine there are all these aliens, and eventually, as an actor, your mind can't imagine that many things if it's just a green screen. And I think to a certain extent, you can kind of see that one of the things in those movies, and it's very, very subtle, that's missing from like the first trilogy, in my humble opinion, is that there's not really kind of a sense of connection to what they're surrounded by. And that there's not really kind of the same urgency that they feel. Everyone's walking around kind of going, here come the droids, and this, and then it's because how do you relate to an entire universe that's not there? You've got to have stuff in front of you. You're going to have better performances because like a real human being, you react to what's in front of you as opposed to nothing. It's difficult to react to nothing.
Well, within Starship Troopers, I mean, I agree to that to a lot of points, but in Starship Troopers, we also had all these. They had images of what the bugs look like, and they had some live, and they had some practical ones. And then they came in, and we had Phil Tippett, and he had done Jurassic Park and had won the Academy Award for Jurassic Park. So it was really, we had all these people that were really into it. And we were out with dirt and everything like this, all these troopers out there, and we're firing weapons. So for us, we had some of that, but we didn't have to sit in a room and just pretend everything was there.
That's what I mean. I mean, imagine if you were just in a room like this with nothing but like green stuff around you, and you had to do the desert and the weapons and the this and the that.
It's unbelievable what they do. They do that in some video games, but even then, that looks a little bit different. I agree with you. Practical is amazing. I just did a film where I did everything practical, and it is a different experience when you get to become something. I was a werewolf in it, and I got to become that, and they put it all on practical.
Doesn't it help?
I think completely it helps. You don't have to do as much work as an actor. You don't have to think as much when you're in that aspect of it.
Well, one of the strange things about being an actor, and maybe Casper's the same feeling, and I don't know what this is, but oftentimes, you'll come to the set, and you'll have, maybe the first time you'll have your costume, your wardrobe, and you've tried it on before you shoot, and the first day, you're like, oh, I'm going to play this character. I don't know, let's say like a prison guard or something like that. If you've never done it. And you put on the wardrobe for the first time, and they do something with your hair, and then maybe they give you a mustache, and they give you a baton, and you look at yourself for the first time in the mirror in this wardrobe, and suddenly you kind of like strangely morph into the part, and it really helps you to become, so if your wardrobe helps you stand differently and think differently and talk differently and just become more of a character, or your hair or whatever it is, makeup or prosthetics, if that all helps you with the character, imagine having none of that, So I think the more
just the dots over on you is weird.
It's weird, isn't it? It's very strange what helps that ability to transform.
Good
It's
question.
a strange thing we do. I mean, it really is.
Weird.
We play pretend for a living, which is like, sounds amazing, but it's also like way more complicated than that.
But it's like when you're a kid and you do that, it's fun. So it's like when you're acting, you're trying to go back to that childlike innocence that you have that you don't get. You're told not to have anymore. So as actors, we're trying to be that immature again.
Well, what's also interesting, and this is again what I taught in the class, was that when you hit sort of puberty, when you hit like 12 or 13, the reason why child actors are so good when they're like 9, 10, 11 is because there's no self-consciousness. They're not really self-aware, and they don't really care what they look like, and they don't really care that much about what other people think about you. Then when you hit puberty, you start worrying about the opposite sex, the same sex, whatever. You start caring about what other people think about you. You start caring about other people's opinions. So instead of just following your impulses, you go, I want to do, ooh, but I might look stupid. Oh, if I say that, but people might think I'm dumb. Or say, and you start second-guessing yourself because now you've just become a person who's self-conscious. And self-consciousness is the death of good acting, because in order to be a great actor, you just have to throw yourself out there and commit. And if you fall on your face, you fall on your face. That's one of the reasons why I personally love Jim Carrey. Because Jim Carrey throws himself out there and takes enormous risks, and if he falls on his face, well, whatever. It's almost like that's what he's willing to do, and people love him for that ability just to make a fool out of himself or take huge risks like that, and you see where it leads you. So it's that kind of fearlessness is like really, really fascinating to watch in other performers, you know?
It's brave, and it's scary, and it is so much fun, and it's beautifully said. You have the box.
My name's Mike. I'm just wondering what's your favorite scene out of Gremlins 1 and 2?
What's my favorite scene?
Yeah.
You mean other than the part when I get to kiss Phoebe? You mean other than that scene?
Probably.
Yeah, that's a pretty good scene. Let's see. Kind of amazing working with beautiful women like that, isn't it? Like you worked with Denise Richards, who's like ridiculously beautiful woman. It's amazing working with these other people that are like genetically perfect. It's just kind of an incredible thing. You walk on the set and you go, how is that person real? Do you ever have that experience sometimes?
Yeah, and then she's dating my good friend Patrick Muldoon, who's also in the film with me, and I have to kiss her. And that makes it, like what you said, it's like, sorry, Pat.
Yeah, there's definitely some awkwardness there. So anyway, favorite scene, I don't know, you know. Maybe the swimming pool scene where he slashes my chest and jumps in the pool, because we had a really cool practical effect that we did there. They brought in this enormous tanker truck with about 10,000 gallons of liquid nitrogen, and they just pumped 10,000 gallons of liquid nitrogen into the swimming pool to make a real chemical reaction, and like the entire ground shook. Have you ever, it's crazy. It was like a little miniature earthquake. So you see in the movie, I'm kind of freaking out because I was like, what's going to happen? They're like, well, we don't know, but it's going to be big. Like, they didn't even know what was going to happen. They're like, it should be pretty crazy. I was like, okay. That's early 80s for you when they had just like...
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like when they blew up the movie theater. I was like, how big is the explosion? And the guy was like, well, we packed it pretty good. And I was like, yeah, but how big is it going to be? They're like, well, we'll see. I was like, we'll see. Isn't this your job?
Did you
yeah,
take
it's gonna be pretty big. Can you be more specific? That's really the way it was. It was just
no
crazy.
Test? They didn't do a test?
They did. Oh, what? Are they blowing up the movie theater? No tests of any kind. In fact, what happened was Joe Dante was like this. He's like, okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to put you and Phoebe in front of the car. You stand here in front of the car. And hold on a second, we get the special effects guy. So, Phil, how big is the explosion going to be? It's going to be really big. So we're going to put you and Phoebe behind the car. Seriously, that's exactly what happened. He goes, you crouch down here, and you crouch down, and when it blows up, you know, if it's really big, you can duck behind the car. And we were like, cool. So we liked that idea. And when it blew up, this is a true story. When it blew up, I felt my eyebrows singe from the heat of the explosion. And the doors of the movie theater, which were just supposed to swing open, blew off the movie theater, came sort of flying out towards us. And the explosion, which we did at about 5 a.m. in Universal Studios, broke about 15 office windows about 1.5 miles away. So 2 hours later, people came in to nothing but shattered black glass in their offices. We got a lot of complaints. The guy was like, I told you it was going to be big.
Thank you.
How was it when you went to the commissary afterwards and you had to eat with everybody looking at you guys that blew up their window?
It was fine. I was like, I didn't do it. Yeah,
I would have been like, sorry. Even though I didn't do it, I would have still been like, it wasn't me, but I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same thing kind of happened. Like another interesting thing was the fight that I have at the end of Gremlins with the chainsaw and the baseball bat. That just came about because I was walking around the set, which was an amazing set built by Jim Spencer, and it looked exactly like the inside of like a Walmart or something like that. I mean, but it was just a set. It was huge, and all the shelves were stocked with real stuff. And I was like, that's kind of like really thorough and kind of amazing, but like, and he's like, yeah, you want to be able to move the camera in and out of the aisles to shoot anywhere you want, so it's completely stocked. So as I was walking by, I saw a chainsaw on the wall. And I'm a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. So I said to Joe Dante, is that your Toby Hooper tribute? Because that's the Tobe Hooper's the name of the director, and they were friends. I said, so is that your tribute to Tobe Hooper? And he goes, actually, yeah, it kind of is. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if I was like, would grab the bat and I was like having a fight with the gremlin with the chainsaw? And Joe stopped and he went, give me 2 minutes. And I was like, uh-oh. And he walked away, and he was talking to the special effects guy, and the special effects guy was going, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh, yeah. And he's like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. And so, are you ready for this? We did the chainsaw fight with a real chainsaw blade in it. So when you watch the movie, so they come up with me, and they have the gremlin, and they have it sort of put into the ground, and it's locked. And he goes, okay, so here's what you want to do. You want to take the baseball bat, and you want to put it here, but you don't want to move it here, and you don't want to move it here. And I go, why not? And he goes, well, because you'll probably lose a finger, and you don't want to do that. And I go, that's really funny. He goes, no, I'm serious. It's got a real blade in it. Okay, let's do this, bad boy. And so I do it, and when we're doing it, you know how, like, wood, it's a baseball bat, it's real wood, so wood occasionally has, like, knots from the tree in it, right? So when when it goes through, it would hit the knot, and then the baseball bat would jump. So I'm there with my bare knuckles next to a real chainsaw blade is right in the center, and my knuckles keep going about inch away on either side of the chainsaw blade. And they were like, well, that was really good. Let's move on to the next scene. I was like, yeah, let's.
That's terrifying.
It's unbelievable, right?
It's terrifying.
I mean, right now, there are, probably lawyers watching this right now going, could we still sue them? I don't know. We could probably, maybe we could.
It's horrifying.
It's,
oh my God.
it's unbelievable,
the
right?
things we do in movies that we would never do in real life.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, wow.
But as you can see, I've got all my knuckles, all my actual fingers still barely from that one. That was a close one.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we like that. Where's the box? Who's got the box?
Who's got the box? It's like Lord of the Flies, right? The guy's like, I've got the conch. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Just toss it. Toss the box. Oh, yeah. That's a noggin box.
He had a bit of a header. Did a bit of a header. Goal!
Ask your question. What's your name?
Adrian. Oh, no, it's James.
Is your name Adrian or is your name James?
James.
Why'd you get confused with your own name?
I don't know.
No, it's Captain.
Oh, you're still James. Oh, I get it.
Right. I've got like...
Have I missed something from another panel?
It's
Is it?
the previous one, William Shatner.
Yeah.
James.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool.
Right.
Okay.
There's one question I want to ask and an idea. Basically, first one, Zach.
Yes.
Have you ever been tempted to dress up as Gizmo for Halloween?
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be.
Yeah.
How many people want to see that? Let's get that on Twitter, okay?
Charity.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. So here's the thing. One of the things that people get a bit grumpy about is I'm not a huge fan of Halloween, or at least getting dressed up. I like Halloween, but I don't like getting dressed up in costume because I get dressed up in costume for a living. So the last thing I want to do is get dressed up as other things and other people, since that's what I do. So I'm not really a huge costume guy, just because I've been doing it for 37 years. So it feels like I've had multiple Halloweens, and I'm kind of over it. But I like Halloween, and I like the pumpkins, and I like all of the stuff that's associated with it. But the whole dress up thing, just not kind of my cup of tea. Sorry to be a downer there, but that's why you guys all come and cosplay and stuff like that, because you hardly ever do it. I do it all the time. So, yeah.
Right, second's an idea.
What's the idea?
It's not you.
Oh, good. Okay.
I know someone. Okay, I was thinking it would be funny because I was watching Dolph Lundgren and Casper. So why don't you and Dolph Lundgren do a little comedy thing? Like Dolph Lundgren could be Captain America, and you could be Bucky. They could do a comedy. That'd be brilliant.
I'm American.
No. You should have been Spider-Man years ago.
I'm too. Spider-Man. Oh,
Years ago, I thought about that.
I should have been Spider-Man.
Bucky and
Bucky.
Captain America.
So I'd be the Russian and he'd be the American. I don't know. It sounds fun. I'd still do it. I'd do anything with him. He's funny. But right now we're doing Zach's panel. This is about gremlins. Comedy, yes. What? I can't hear you. You don't have the box anymore. That's the next question.
Who has the box
Oh,
now?
my God.
Thank you. Next question, please. What can I do for you, love? As little as possible as he could. He was very lazy. We had to get him out of bed all the time. He was always hungover. No, I'm teasing. Gizmo worked reasonably well. You had to handle him gently. The dog that was my dog was really, in the movie, was actually it was a dog that worked a lot in movies around that era. His name was Mushroom. It was his real name. But his character name was Barney in the movie. And Barney was really fascinated by he was convinced that the actual Gizmo puppet was alive. And he thought it was a real animal. And so he would constantly try to either lick or bite or taste or eat Gizmo. So if you see in the movie, I'm kind of holding him back a lot because he was getting a little overzealous, shall we say. So at one point, when we were shooting the Christmas scene where I get him as a gift and I open him up the box for the first time, he steps on Gizmo's ear and he kind of ripped it off the side of Gizmo's head. And Chris Wayless, who was like super stressed out FX guy and had like the weight of the world on his shoulders, was only 28 years old when he did all of that, so he was really kind of still a very young man. He'd come over like after the dog tore the ear off and he'd be like, oh dear, oh no, oh my. He'd be looking and you could see all the mechanical bits and stuff like that. And Joe Dante would be like, how long, Chris? How long's the delay? And he's like, hold on. Oh no, oh God. And we could tell by the number of oh dears and oh gods that Chris Wayless would say how long the delay would be. So if he said like 3 oh dears and 2 oh gods, that was usually about 7 or 8 hour delay. Wow. So yeah, but for me it was cool because I didn't want the shoot to end. So that if there was an 8 hour delay, I'd just go out of stage 16. I'd walk a couple of blocks away, and there was Spielberg's office. And Spielberg had his arcade games there. So he had Pole Position and Millipede and Pac-Man and Food Fight and stuff like that. And I would play them so much, and Corey Feldman would play them so much. You got to remember, Corey Feldman was 11, so he was like a 5th grader. We'd play them so much, they eventually moved the machines onto the stage so he wouldn't keep walking back and forth to Spielberg's office. So the whole thing was just like a huge, amazing playground for me. It was just an unbelievable experience for someone who was basically 19 and had never even been to California. I mean, the first time I was ever in LA was doing Gremlins. I was a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for Zach.
There you go. Short and sweet. Was that 30 minutes?
Yeah,
Amazing.
33, 34. But he's going to be going around with Gremlins, so go see him.
Thank you very much, guys. Love you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Casper, too.